In preparation for setting up vSphere and the vCenter Server appliance to use a centralized CA at a company, we need to have a CA up and running in our lab. So I was thinking to myself, I could just set up the back end and set up the certificate authority on Windows and just focus on the VMware side, but I thought there may be some people who are building this lab in their own lab environment, and it would be helpful just to see all the pieces so they're not missing anything. So in this nugget, you and I are going to walk through the setup of certificate services in a Windows Server environment. And then in the next nugget, we'll leverage the CA that we're building right here as we integrate that with the vCenter Server appliance. So here on our management computer, which is our Windows Server, DC-NUG, let's go ahead and click on the icon for Server Manager down here in the taskbar. And let's go ahead and maximize that full screen. And then right here, let's click on option number 2 to add roles and features. So we'll click Add Roles and Features. We'll maximize that window as well. We'll click Next just a few times, 3 to be exact. And then under Roles, we'll put a check in the checkbox next to Active Directory Certificate Services. It needs some additional features for that to function, so we'll click on the Add Features button, and then click Next, Next again, Next again. And then in addition to the Certificate Authority, let's also click on the 4th checkbox down, which is the CA Web Enrollment, and click on Add Features regarding that. So all we're doing here is we're adding the role of Certificate Authority and the ability to do web-based enrollment. So behind the scenes, it's also going to install IIS if that's not already running on this server. So with those two selected, we'll click on Next, and then click on Install. And this does not require a reboot, so we are not going to reboot this Windows Server. And there's some good reasons for that too. This Windows Server is providing the iSCSI targets and the NFS that are making up data stores that our ESXi hosts are currently using. So we don't want to disturb the apple cart by rebooting this server unnecessarily. So once that's completed the installation, there's a link right here to configure Active Directory Certificate Services on this server. So we'll go ahead and click on that link right here. We can also go ahead and close the installation wizard because we're done with that. And let's go ahead and maximize this window for the Active Directory Certificate Services configuration. And then we'll click Next. We'll click on the top checkbox for Certificate Authority, give that a moment, click on the second checkbox for the Web Enrollment, and with those two selected, click on Next. We're going to use the Enterprise Certificate Authority, so with that top radio button selected, we'll click on Next. This is going to be a root CA on this Windows Server, so with that radio button selected, we'll click on Next. We're going to create a new private key, so we'll click on Next. We'll use the defaults for the cryptography, for the hashing, and also the key length, click on Next. We'll leave all these defaults as they are. Click on Next. However, here, instead of doing 5 years, I'm going to change this to be 10 years regarding the validity period for the certificate that we're generating. And with 10 years in place, we'll click on Next. We'll leave the default database locations. Click on Next. And then click on Configure. And in a moment, ta-da! It's done! Next, let's do a quick verification of certificate services. We can do that by clicking on Tools. From the drop-down menu, we'll click on Certificate Authority right here. Let's maximize that Certificate Authority window. And I'm going to rearrange this just a little bit. And if we expand our server by using the little icon to the left of it, the little green check next to the server implies that it's running. And if we look at certificate templates, we've got several to choose from. We could also add more. If you want more training on the specifics of working with and managing certificates in Certificate Manager on the Windows side, you can check out course 70-742, which includes nuggets specific on the Windows Server side for additional training on installing and managing and working with certificates in a Microsoft environment. So for now, I just want to make sure that the service was up and running. Also, let's open up a browser. So I'm going to use the icon for Chrome here on the taskbar. And let's open up a URL to http://dc-nug.nugetlab.com/CERTSRV. So that's the URL for web enrollment for certificate services on this DC-NUG computer. So if we press enter, and we'll authenticate with our username of administrator at nugetlab.com with our lab password supplied, and click login. I just want to verify that it's up and running. I'm also going to say yes, go ahead and save the username and password for this site, and we are good to go. So now that we've walked through the initial setup of the CA services in a Windows environment, if you'd like to practice what we did together in this nugget, there is a hands-on lab that you can use to practice with that's associated with this video. And I look forward to seeing you in the next nugget where we'll use the CA server in combination with our vCenter server appliance. Meanwhile, I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.